Israel has reportedly allowed Red Cross and Egyptian teams, and in some cases Hamas representatives, to cross into IDF-held areas of Gaza to search for the bodies of hostages. The efforts come within U.S. President Trump's 48-hour deadline for Hamas to complete its side of the agreement to return all of the fallen captives. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
A government spokesperson confirmed that Israel permitted Egyptian and Red Cross teams to cross the yellow line, the boundary marking the military's pullback. Another official said Hamas members joined the search under supervision. Hamas claims it cannot locate some of the remaining 13 hostage bodies, but Israel believes the group is withholding information in breach of the ceasefire agreement. Footage aired by Qatari channel Al Arabi showed Hamas shadow unit members working near Red Cross vehicles in the Al Mawasi area close to Rafah.
In full cooperation with Israel, the Prime Minister approved the entry of an Egyptian team into the Gaza Strip to assist in searching for our remains of our deceased hostages. Now, this is a technical team only, and none of these personnel are in the military. What I can share with you is the team is using between 2 to 3 excavator machines and 2 to 3 trucks to search for our deceased hostages.
The Israeli spokesperson confirmed that the technical team has been allowed to cross into Israeli-held parts of Gaza.
Now, the Red Cross and the Egyptian team are allowed entry beyond the IDF's yellow line position into Gaza territory to conduct the search for our hostages. Last week, the Prime Minister and his professional team met with the head of Egyptian intelligence here in Jerusalem to talk about the ongoing issues that need to be resolved. One of those topics was why our hostages have not all been returned yet. We are working together to execute this plan and ensure Hamas upholds their side of the agreement.
2 weeks into the ceasefire in Gaza, the front line remains tense, but mostly quiet. Israeli forces have pulled back to positions beyond the yellow line, while international and Palestinian teams continue searches for hostage bodies under Red Cross supervision. Hamas appears to remain in control in parts of Gaza, despite agreements to limit its presence, and has yet to return all remaining hostages or provide full information on the missing. Aid convoys are entering daily through Rafah and Kerem Shalom, but Israeli officials warn that any renewed Hamas attacks would be answered with force and could imperil the fragile ceasefire.
5 former Israeli hostages are back home after being discharged from hospital care. The men, freed after more than 2 years in Hamas captivity in Gaza, were met by emotional scenes as crowds waved flags, cheered, and welcomed them back to their communities across the country. Families say the recovery process is just beginning. We're now here with ILTV correspondent India Naftali for more on the status of the freed hostages. Hi, India.
Hello, thank you for having me.
India, first of all, walk us through the significance of the moment, such a big moment for all of these 5 former hostages to come home after more than 2 years of torturous captivity. What are we learning about their condition? How is Israel reacting to their return?
Well, the hostages who were returned from the hospital just yesterday were Evitar David, Guy Gilboa Dalal, Eitan Mo, Segev Kalfon, and Bal Kuperstein. One thing that I heard that really touched me personally was when Eitan Mo's father was leaving the hospital with the family, before he left, he said, "When we leave, the returning hostages ward will close, and I pray that it will never open again."
So this ward actually was the place where all hostages who were released would go to for immediate first intensive care and treatment, right?
Right, and it was opened exclusively for them, and upon their closing, it also closes as well.
So that's exactly why his father is saying, I hope it never reopens, and, hopefully, and God willing. Now, many of these former hostages are now beginning to open up about their captivity period, about what they went through in Gaza. What kinds of transformative experiences have they described? What have we been exposed to thus far?
Well, before October 7th, as we know, the country was extremely divided. And as that still stays true today, Segev Kalfon, when he was received by his community and he saw the flags and everything, the country that he saw before, he looked out and he said to Channel 12, people of Israel, pay attention. This is unity. Kuperstein, he had mentioned that he had gone through sort of a spiritual experience just simply because of the abuse he had gone through and how he had to lean on his faith during his time in Gaza. And the Haredi family largely adopted largely his parents and his family and really took them under their wing. And so when he came out of captivity, he said that he had always been traditional. He did Kiddush, but he never kept Shabbat. And now that he's out, he sees the importance of practicing his faith and being more involved in that. And it's really been something important for him since he's returned back as his faith.
Thank you very much, India Naftali. In what could reshape post-war Gaza and the future of Palestinian leadership, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority have reportedly agreed on a new figure to lead Gaza's next governing body, while Mahmoud Abbas quietly moves to cement his own successor in Ramallah. More from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
Hamas and the Palestinian Authority have chosen Amjad Shawa, a civil society leader from Gaza, to head a new technocratic board that will govern the Strip once the war ends. The agreement was reached during talks in Cairo between Hamas, the PA, and Egyptian intelligence. But the final word still rests with the United States, which must sign off on the plan, according to Khan News. Palestinian sources told Khan that Shawa is pro-Hamas without being a Hamas man. While Hamas chose half the board members and the PA chose the rest, Egypt ultimately presented the completed list to Hamas in what observers described as an attempt to appease the organization. Shawa currently leads the Palestinian NGO network, and in past interviews he has highlighted Gaza's humanitarian collapse and blamed Israel for a famine in the Strip, as well as destruction of hospitals, although Israel has proven that those hospitals were being used to harbor terrorists and carry out attacks. Critics say his appointment shows that Hamas still intends to control the Strip. In an interview with Reuters, senior Hamas official Mohammed Nazal confirmed the group's plans to maintain security control in Gaza, and he said they cannot commit to disarming. He said Hamas is open to a 5-year ceasefire, but only if Palestinians are given, quote, horizons and hope for statehood. Israeli analyst Dr. Kobi Michael told Reuters that Hamas has not changed its DNA. They do not intend to disarm or leave the Strip, and they want to be part of the day after. While Gaza's leadership structure takes shape, another major development is unfolding in the PA-controlled areas of Judea and Samaria. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has officially designated his deputy, Hussein al-Sheikh, as interim successor in case of his death or incapacitation, a constitutional amendment first reported by Israeli media. Under the new clause, al-Sheikh would serve as acting president for up to 3 months until elections are held. A longtime Fatah insider, known for close coordination with Israel, al-Sheikh's rise is viewed as a bid to reassure international partners and prevent chaos when the 89-year-old Abbas eventually leaves office. Taken together, the Shawa appointment in Gaza and al-Sheikh's succession plan in Ramallah signal an emerging post-war Palestinian order that keeps Hamas influential in the Strip, while the PA seeks continuity in the territories. The question now, will the dual power structure bring stability or deepen division?
Defense officials reportedly told Israeli lawmakers that a U.S.-led multinational force planned to stabilize Gaza after the war may include troops from Pakistan. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists that Israel will have veto power if it opposes certain nations from sending forces. More on this from ILTV's Devo Klein.
According to Ynet, the U.S.-led international force in Gaza would include soldiers from Indonesia and Azerbaijan. Indonesia had already previously offered to send troops, and Azerbaijan had also agreed to contribute. And the possible participation of Pakistani soldiers was disclosed for the first time during a closed-door briefing last week. Israel has already made it clear that troops from Turkey would not be acceptable. Prime Minister Netanyahu told the cabinet that Israel will have an effective veto on which international forces enter Gaza.
אנחנו שולטים בביטחון שלנו, ואנחנו גם הבהרנו שביחס לכוחות בינלאומיים ישראל תקבע איזה כוחות אינם מקובלים עלינו, וכך אנחנו פועלים ונמשיך לפעול. זה כמובן מקובל גם על ארצות הברית, כפי שנציגי הבכירים ביותר הבהירו בימים האחרונים. ישראל היא מדינה עצמאית, אנחנו נגן על עצמנו בכוחות עצמנו, ואנחנו נמשיך לשלוט בגורלנו.
The prime minister also took time to reject claims that officials in Washington and not Jerusalem are making all the key security decisions for Israel.
בחודש האחרון אנחנו עדים לטענות מגוחכות ביחס ליחסים בין ארצות הברית וישראל. כשהייתי בוושינגטון נאמר שם שאני שולט בממשל האמריקני, אני מכתיב לו את המדיניות הביטחונית שלו. עכשיו טוענים את ההפך, הממשל האמריקני שולט בי והוא מכתיב את המדיניות הביטחונית של ישראל. לא זה נכון ולא זה נכון. ישראל היא מדינה עצמאית, ארצות הברית היא מדינה עצמאית, היחסים בינינו הם יחסים של שותפים.
Netanyahu says that Israel remains firmly in control of its security decisions and that Jerusalem will have the final say on which international forces are permitted in Gaza. The prime minister stressed that the veto power is accepted by the United States, reaffirming Israel's independence in defending its interests and determining its own security future.
And joining me now to discuss all of this is David Makovsky, Distinguished Fellow and Director of the Koret Project on Arab-Israel Relations at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Thank you, David, for joining.
Delighted to be with you.
Likewise. David, we're hearing Netanyahu's assertion of Israel's sovereignty today in response to decisions that are, well, possibly being forced down Netanyahu's throat. Is Netanyahu's statement a message to Washington, in your opinion? What are your thoughts about this?
No, I think, but there has to be some fine tuning. I mean, you had a situation, I remember during the Gulf War of 1991, where the U.S. had a base of Patriot missiles, but it was kept very on the hush-hush. This has had a higher profile. There have been press conferences at the base by U.S. officials. And so I think there's going to be some fine tuning about the profile of the U.S. role in the eyes of the media. But I think, the fact that all these, we have what they call babysitting, of all these U.S. high officials was a fear of backsliding that the war could resume. So the U.S. fear is real, but Netanyahu is right that the U.S., Israel, I think, will have a veto on members of the role of the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, in terms of their role. I don't think any of them, by the way, are really going to interpose themselves and forcibly disarm Hamas. That raises its own questions. So I think in practice, the U.S. and Israel are going to have to work together, and it could be that whatever Israel doesn't do to disarm Hamas will not get done.
Do you believe that Netanyahu will eventually have to do what Trump says that he has to do no matter what? Are there any red lines for Israel where he would say, no, this I will not do?
Yeah, there's no doubt that, and I think Trump is aware, too, that if Israel is attacked, it's going to hit back. And also, Trump has said if Hamas doesn't disarm, he's going to want to give Israel more maneuvering room to, as they call, finish the job. Whether that actually happens the way Trump says is a different question. But I don't think it's fair to depict Israel as a vassal state the way some of it is going. The truth is, there's always been limitations on Israeli maneuvering, but it just wasn't so explicit, I would say, in the eyes of the public. Israel often had to take America into account in its decisions. But this seems just the media optics this time look differently, and Trump's style is very different. So, it makes it sound like it's an all or nothing, and it's always been a gray zone.
Well, Trump is very unique and certainly unpredictable. But at this critical moment in the Gaza war and post-war planning, how do you assess the U.S.-Israel relationship and alliance at large at this time?
That's a great question. I mean, I think Trump was uniquely positioned to bring this war to an end and to line up all the pressure on Hamas of the Arabs. Clearly, he pressed Netanyahu on the Israeli side. But part one is, I'm sorry to say, I hate to say it this way, because it was not easy at all to get these hostages out. Thank God they were out. But the first part was much more transactional. Everyone got something. Phase two, about what is the relationship between disarmament and withdrawal, is going to get much tougher. What the IDF has always wanted is the freedom of action, the freedom to maneuver, and believing that it will not be dependent on these international stabilization forces. And I tend to believe the reality is going to look a little bit more like the West Bank, what we would call Area B, where Israel goes in and out when it wants, like it did with Lebanon. And that's going to complicate things in certain ways, but Israel's going to always want the right to defend itself, and it's legitimate. But it's going to have to navigate and with a lot of with certain constraints, because the U.S. doesn't want to see a return to war. So what is going to be the relationship between disarmament and withdrawal? Clearly, if you look at paragraph 16 of the deal, Israel doesn't want to leave until the disarmament milestones have been met. So it'll be complicated. The dirty little secret is that none of the Arab force, in my view, wants to be interposed between Israel and Hamas anyway. So I tend to think they'll be more on the borders, and Israel will have some freedom of maneuver to act at Hamas if Hamas doesn't disarm. And I don't expect Hamas to voluntarily disarm.
And so looking ahead, 6 to 12 months from now, you're looking forward. How do you believe that stability will look like?
I think it's going to look a little bit like West Berlin, East Berlin. The 53% of the West Bank where Israel is, we'll see reconstruction. We'll see more hope for the Gaza people who have suffered, as the Israeli people also have suffered, each in their own unique way, of course. But I think in the end, the idea is to show people where Hamas is not in control, you have a better life. And so is that 100% of Gaza? No, if Hamas is still there on the what I call the East Berlin side, the 47% of the west of Gaza. And the question is how that's going to work in practice. So I tend to think we're heading towards what I call West Berlin, East Berlin. I know it has echoes of the Cold War. Not saying every situation is analogous, but I do think there'll be parts of Gaza that are Hamas free, and hopefully those people will have a better life in those zones. And where Hamas does not does not disarm, I fear it's going to be somewhat of a war zone of sorts.
David Makovsky, thank you very much.
Delighted to be with you.
On October 7, I was here at the Nova Music Festival. I ran for my life, hid for 7 hours. Terrorists shot me twice. Thankfully, I survived. I'm still dealing with trauma, and I'm not alone. 3 million Israelis are in trauma. They need mental health care or physical rehabilitation. Wounded soldiers, families, and scared children.
Since 1912, Hadassah has been a life-changing force in Israel. Today, Hadassah has 2 world-renowned hospitals, pioneers breakthrough medical research, cares for youth, and has built the much-needed and largest rehabilitation facility in Jerusalem.
Thank you to everyone at Hadassah Hospitals. You've been helping me, and so many others. And a special thanks to one nurse, my mom. I love you.
Tensions are continuing in the north amid Hezbollah attempts to rebuild terrorist infrastructure in Lebanon. The IDF confirms it killed 2 Hezbollah operatives in separate drone strikes. The first strike near the southern town of Nakura eliminated Abd As-Sayed, Hezbollah's local representative in Ras al-Bayada. The IDF says he was responsible for liaising with residents on economic and military matters and was working to rebuild Hezbollah's military capabilities in the area. A second strike in the eastern Bekaa Valley killed Al-Hussein al-Muwassawi, identified as a weapons smuggler who transferred arms from Syria to Lebanon. The army says he played a significant role in re-establishing Hezbollah's arsenal and had been active in weapons smuggling throughout the past year. Since the U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah began last November, the IDF conducted over 600 military operations in southern Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley, and Beirut. These operations include airstrikes, ground activities, and other tactical actions. About half of the strikes occurred south of the Litani River. The IDF has reported the elimination of over 140 Hezbollah operatives during this period, many of whom were involved in activities such as infrastructure restoration, intelligence gathering, and weapons smuggling. 1 year ago, on October 26, 2024, Israel launched a series of retaliatory strikes deep inside Iran, marking a historic escalation in their shadow war. Now, as the anniversary of Operation Days of Repentance is marked, the IDF have released new footage showing the moment Israeli jets targeted and destroyed Iranian air defense batteries and ballistic missile facilities. Devo Klein reports.
The strikes came 4 weeks after Iran fired a massive barrage of missiles at Israel, the first direct attack by Tehran in decades. Israel's response, coordinated by military intelligence and the Air Force, hit multiple strategic locations across Iran, including missile production sites, surface-to-air launchers, and radar systems. The targets reportedly included installations near Khorramabad, Elam, and Khuzestan, as well as facilities linked to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. The operation, the IDF says, significantly damaged Iran's missile production capabilities and expanded Israel's freedom of action in Iranian airspace. The strikes also paved the way for Operation Rising Lion in June 2025, a 12-day war that destroyed large portions of Iran's ballistic missile arsenal and damaged several nuclear facilities. Tehran downplayed the impact at the time, claiming the damage was limited, but satellite images and independent analysis shows significant destruction at key military sites linked to Iran's missiles developments. 1 year later, the operation is regarded as a strategic turning point, demonstrating Israel's ability to strike far beyond its borders and to deter future Iranian aggression. The IDF called the operation a, quote, clear message that Israel will not tolerate attacks on its territory and that even the Iranian regime's most heavily guarded targets are within reach.
That doesn't suit you.
I'm telling you what's right for you.
Listen to me, I know what I'm talking about.
Feels uncomfortable? That's just about clothing, something you can change tomorrow. But what about choices that last a lifetime? In Israel, over 30,000 women every year feel that their most fundamental right is taken away. The ability to choose. Financial pressure, pressure from a partner, pressure from family, or even that quiet voice whispering, "You can't do this." That's why FRAD exists. Not to tell her what to do, not to choose for her, but to isolate the pressure, to enable a true free choice. Whether it's emotional support, medical guidance, personal mentoring, career counseling, parenting education, or the most practical essentials. A crib, a stroller, clothes, diapers, baby supplies, food packages. Everything she needs to make the choice she wants instead of the choice she feels forced to make. More than 89,000 women have already found the strength to choose and give birth. But it's not enough. We must give every woman the ability to choose. It is our moral and ethical duty. Every donation gives another woman the ability to choose. Every act of support means life for someone else. FRAT, giving hope to birth.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 18 degrees Celsius or 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside hot temperatures, seeing highs of 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel. And you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Arviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.